This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway To Shea Podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. Episode 214 from the Subway To Shea studios in my office. Make sure you're following Subway To Shea on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway To Shea. You can follow me personally, as you see my tag name there, at Ant Rivera 86. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you prefer to listen to the show. But if you want to be a part of the comments, you want to be a part of the chat, the interaction, you're doing that on YouTube. You can also do that as well on X, but YouTube is where it's at. Subscribe there and be a part of the show every Sunday. And I know I wasn't here last Sunday, but I was celebrating my wedding anniversary with Mrs. Subway To Shea, so it was nice to get a little bit of a break from these Mets, but we're kicking it into high gear because there's one more month left in the regular season, and there's so much to talk about. And I got my good friend, my guest here today, Ernest Dove from the New York Mets Dove Report. And he covers Mets prospects, especially for the St. Lucie Mets. You can follow him at Ernest Dove. Ernest, man, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Enjoying all the new prospects who are almost no longer prospects as they soon to qualify as major leaguers.
You got to feel a little bit like a proud dad watching these guys graduate into the major leagues. We're seeing now more than ever as the Mets hold on to these prospects, we're seeing them get to the major leagues and becoming important contributors to this New York Mets team. And it's just great to see that this is becoming somewhat, and you have your stars, right? You have your Lindors and you have your Sotos, but a lot of these guys, a lot of homegrown guys, all the way going back to Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil. And now you're looking at guys like Jonah, Tong, and Nolan McLean.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of things, it's always about, well, who can we call up? Who can we call up? And I know there's been never-ending debates of the guys who've been called up in the last 2-3 years, but now you're looking at a roster, give or take the heartaches and the stress, but look at the roster itself right now. It's full of homegrown guys. It just hasn't been the arms recently, pretty much since a Peterson at this point, but now, hopefully, we're at the new wave of the next David Petersons to come, and it's looking pretty exciting so far, isn't it?
It is, and it's interesting that you brought up David Peterson because even though he's been struggling over the last couple of starts, he's really come a long way since 2020, since his debut, and it just shows, how long it kind of really takes, some prospects to get themselves going in the right direction. We're seeing it with Brett Beatty, and we're seeing with Francisco Alvarez, the length that it takes for them and the process that these guys are going through. Not everyone's going to be Nolan McLean. Not everyone's going to be Pete Alonso or David Wright. It takes some of these guys a while to get themselves going and to become an important core to what this New York Mets franchise is trying to put together.
Yeah, man, and it makes sense, too. Obviously, I'm the prospect hugger. I'm going to love everybody. But when you look around the league, even the guys, the name we shall not say, who was hitting like 500 home runs in the first half, that prospect now in the major leagues as a rookie has been struggling the entire second half. I mean, these things happen all around baseball, whether it's Mets prospects, former Mets prospects. There's been other top prospects around the league that have been demoted and brought back up. I mean, it's kind of the ebb and flow. Even a guy like Nimmo, we can argue all day about the fourth outfielder joke, but he was kind of a platoon bat who kind of did his thing. He started slower. He wasn't like a McNeil who came up hitting from day one. Alonso, who hit 1 million home runs as a rookie. And even Alonso, obviously, as we know, through the years, up and down, up and down. It's okay. It doesn't mean that Beatty and Vientos right now are going to be core all-stars, but it's a different form of development. And as I've been talking about on my show now for a while, the coaching staff, even under Stearns, the resources have changed a lot. And it includes all the way from the Dominican Summer League to AAA, every batter of the 200 or so prospects in the system, they're being taught different things. And the pitchers, like a Tong, like a McLean, they were learning different pitches, different grips, different pitch usages all through the minor leagues. This is all a process that's been happening all the way through to August, even for the top arms right now.
Yeah, and we're going to get into the top arms real quick. I want to shout out. We got 80 people in the room to start this show. Appreciate you all being here. AP, Duran Rivera, Armand, Maureen in the house, Marcos Figueroa here as well. G Money Stacks, appreciate you for being in here. Nelson Cruz, everyone that's in this room. If you got comments, questions, please leave them in the chat for us, and we'll make sure we get to them as quickly as we can. You can also support the show with super chat, super stickers, all available on YouTube. Let's start off with Jonah Tong because he made his debut on Friday versus the Miami Marlins. 5 innings pitched, 6 hits, 4 runs. One of them was earned, 6 strikeouts. I want to get what your impressions were of Jonah's debut. He battled through 5 innings, especially that last one. We didn't think he was going to come away with the win because the errors behind him, but he gutted it through and he got through the 5 innings. A little bit of help from that last strike, but still got through the 5 innings.
Well, yeah, and obviously I could defend him to the death. I literally interviewed him on my show. So if you want to see the interview on the New York Mets Dove Report, I interviewed him when he was way back in AA, only a month ago. But then again, now in defense of Tom, he had that, 6-pitch first inning, and then he sat for like 3 hours. So it's not the easiest thing in baseball with the up-downs, reliever or starter. But when you have to sit for that long in your debut, that probably doesn't help. Plus some of the miscues defensively. We don't know now in hindsight either way what his stat line would have looked like, but obviously I liked what I saw. I was curious to see what kind of pitch mix. A lot of fastballs, I believe, in the first, trying to mix in some other pitches in the second. I like the idea of continuing to do that. Even online, they were like, it's all about the changeup and fastball. And then Mendoza mentions the curveball, like, dude, maybe Carlos Mendoza should be watching my show or the X channel because I've been talking about his curveball since like he was 19 years old. It was good to see the curveball doing what it does at the 12-6 action. Probably was expected for the pitchers to be very confused by his delivery. So overall, it's a good performance. I like that he was able to get the ball down when he needed, but I know his fastball sometimes looks good when it stays up as long as he gets the call. I even mentioned that before the game. Will they call that upper zone fastball that he's good at? So overall, I liked it. I think he's going to continue to get better and progress. And overall, I like the command overall looked pretty good to me, even compared to some outings he's had in the minors. He'll have those glitches, which Mets fans hate when you have one of those 1 or 2 walk innings. He did do that in the minor leagues. So as long as he's throwing the strikes like McLean, trust your defense. Minus what's been going on the last week in the Mets. But if he can continue to do that, he's going to be what you saw this last night.
Yeah, he was solid. And, the first 2 innings, you love to see the Mets score for their pitchers because sometimes it's a rarity. We always talk about Jacob deGrom never getting run support. Tom Seaver, all the Dwight Gooden, all these guys never got the run support that they needed. But here you got, Jonah Tong getting the big runs in the first 2 innings, but it kind of, stopped him. He had to sit for a while, like you mentioned. And, that kind of takes a toll. But for him, he really seemed unfazed. Even when the defense kind of struggled behind him, he had the poise. I talked about it last week, a couple weeks ago with Joe DeMeo when he was on, about Nolan McLean and the poise and how he carries himself on the field. And this is another pitcher that we're seeing that has that kind of same type of mentality, and hopefully it just carries and radiates with the rest of this team.
Well, that's the energy that I was talking about on my account too. Like you see it, you saw the energy. Now it's pretty much it's Harvey night every time McLean now is taking the mound, and you may continue to do that on Tong night. And it's even from last year. I get totally different situations, but you call up a Luis Angel Acuna, and he goes on a little run, and all of a sudden the entire Mets team looks like a super playoff team because of a young player in a certain role. So when you have this going on, I don't know how many more now are going to be brought up. There may not be any more coming, Mets fans, but without obviously something unfortunate happening. But this energy right now in 2/5 or 2/6 of the rotation, I think the energy is going to continue because everyone, especially the fans, and now even the players, are going to feed off these 2 guys every week.
Did you think he would be called up over Brandon Sproat, especially with how Sproat was pitching over the last month or so? He was really one of the best pitchers in all of minor league baseball over the last month. Did you think that Tong would get this call this quickly? And also, what do you think was just the influence in choosing Tong over Sproat?
I mean, I honestly thought Sproat would be the first one called up of the three. Even in spring, I was thinking, okay, first man up is going to be possibly Tidwell, based on experience, level stuff, all that. For Sproat to not get the call at this point, it's been confusing. But I know the Mets organization a little bit. They've been talking about some things. McLean, a lot of people online mentioning things like let him better dominate lefties, along with some of the overall pitch command. Same thing for Jonah Tong. Even in my interview with Jonah Tong, he's like, I'm working on my command. Even when I talked about the previous outing, he just came out of the night before he pitched in Double-A, was worried, he was happy about like having 0 or 1 walks that night. So those are some of the things I'm sure the Mets are checking with metrics. But as far as Sproat, I've been saying for at least 2 months now, stuff that he was working on with his two-seamer and command overall, trying to get more sink on his ball. Everyone's complaining about his fastball. So maybe they're just trying to figure out the metrics, spin rate, pitch usage. But yeah, now that he's dominating for weeks at a time, to me it seems interesting. But when you have Jonah Tong, at this point, he was pretty much putting up numbers better than anyone in minor league baseball as a whole, from low A to triple A. It's hard to ignore the numbers, having the most strikeouts in minor league baseball. And then it's like, well, let me test him at the highest AAA level with a different baseball, by the way. Yeah. None of that mattered because he had back-to-back scoreless outings in AAA. It's basically showing at this point, no matter the age, why even waste his bullets at this point? But a guy like Sproat, the only thing I can think of is overall the command maybe looks different. Maybe they're seeing something different. Tong was so absolutely dominating. They probably figured, let's find another lightning in a bottle right now.
I know you said you might not see any more, these guys come up, but even John Leary's asking, could we see Sproat be that September call up?
Well, see, my thing is that I've been kind of making people angry of sorts, depending on what kind of fandom you have on Mets Twitter. But as it stands right now, if you were to hit September, which is what, tomorrow, as far as you can only call up one bat, one arm, here's the, not a bad situation, but here's the situation. You've got Winker and you've got Siri already in rehab games, and you have McGill already ready to go almost at this point. So regardless of anyone's thoughts of the players, you would think of the two guys, those two roster spots are probably going to be filled among those three. And if the two bats are not ready, I would assume you're going to see Acuna tomorrow. That would be my guess.
And, if Sproat doesn't come up, obviously he's not postseason eligible as Tong and McLean would be. Maybe it makes more sense to keep him down there. Maybe there's more motivation coming into next season that adds to the whole thing, that maybe he just comes out in February and March and he just becomes one of the pieces of the rotation that we thought he was going to be this year.
And yeah, I don't want to compare the players. They definitely have different stuff, but we've gone down this route before with Mets farmhand guys, including, guess who? David Peterson, Tyler McGill. We've been going through this even into camp. They weren't 100% on the rotation, and they weren't 100% deserving of AAA. So we may see now Sproat's kind of being stuck, falling into that little window right now, for better or worse. But obviously, even from this past deadline, I think even last winter, I kept trying to hit up Met sources because I'm always worried about my prospects. It didn't sound like they wanted anything to do with letting Sproat go from last winter. And obviously, he wasn't traded at the deadline. Now, I don't have any new intel from my sources, but they were very high on Sproat, even from winter and spring. Doesn't seem like it's changing much other than the why didn't you call him up? But it doesn't have to be a negative because he's still with the organization. I'm sure they believe in him. So I still think there's going to be a bright future. But it's never easy, even for a prospect hugger, to say, have them all in the rotation, because even as guys like a Montas, unfortunately, is going to miss out next year. Manaea can opt out. Senga can't. I mean, regardless of all the shuffling, I don't know if we're going to have a 3-rookie rotation to break camp next year either way. But I think he might be more depth one way or another, is my opinion, going into next year.
I like the depth, and I like the fact that the Mets are building, rotation of arms in their system, because we've seen, a lot of fans were talking about, should have signed this guy, in the offseason. All the big names are hurt right now. Tommy John surgery. There's so many injuries. And I know the Mets get killed for signing, Senga and Manaya not being healthy and all that stuff. But, those deals are short-term deals. They're not 6-7 year deals. And it allows the Mets to continue the development of these kids, which I think at the end of the day, building a rotation of arms from within is probably the most important thing for this team to do, and for probably every baseball team to adopt moving forward.
It's always easier said than done. And obviously it was posted in the last week or two that got all of Mets fandom excited. I believe it was ESPN, one of their journalists, ranked the Mets farm system #1 overall. That probably caused chaos for non-Mets fans. But this is what they were trying to build. When they were making the jokes about the East Coast Dodgers, they were really trying to do that. So here we are. And that's why you can go at deadline trading, 6 prospects at least? I think it was 6 at the deadline. And they're ranked #1 after the deadline, in at least somebody's professional opinion. This is what the depth can do now for the Mets going forward. And I know, again, by winter, I've been saying, why are you holding on to Beatty, Vientos, Mauricio, Acuna? You can't have all 4 next year, in my opinion. I have to honestly say, not McLean and Tong, you better not move them. But there's going to be the same discussion again of the guys right below them, which might actually include Sproat. We've got Wenninger. We've got Zach Thornton. We've got RJ Gordon. There's guys coming out of nowhere that I was not familiar with at all. They're not even top 5 draft picks, and they're dominating, or at least high K rates. There's so much going on now with the depth, and we haven't even talked about, basically, in my opinion, the 2 top reliever prospects in the system that are sitting there as well in the upper minors, almost ready to go.
Marcus Figueroa, to just land the plane on Brandon Sproat, talking about, maybe could possibly be a reliever closer. We saw him get a little bit of relief appearance, did not do well. Was that only if they were going to bring him up this season that they wanted to throw him? Because he got a start and he pitched very well in his last start. So was that just a testing ground, or is there more to Sproat possibly becoming a reliever?
I mean, yeah, to me, what was implied in somewhat public statements by the Mets, it looked like the only point of Sproat trying to kind of work out of a pen as an experience would be only for 2025 to get through the end of the season, maybe show off that form of electric arm. He already throws 99 plus anyway as a starter. He can probably go 100, 101 for an inning or two. So I would see it as a kind of a 2-month rental version of it, like other teams like the Cardinals and other organizations, like the Dodgers years ago with one of their young starters. I definitely feel it would have been only a temporary thing for this year. But I know in general, there's a lot of fans, they like the idea of certain arms transitioning one way or another to the pen. And then maybe what does the success of McLean and Tong, if it is sustainable, again, if you can't have all of these kids in the same rotation, do you have a Sproat as a full-time reliever going forward? They tried that with Dom Hamill this year, and the stats have been up and down. Sproat now is considered a more higher echelon prospect, but I just think it was a temporary thing. I would think one way or another he's breaking camp as a starting pitcher for the Mets organization, hopefully. It would have just been a 2-month thing.
One last thing on Jonah Tong before we move to Nolan McLean. What would you like to see him improve upon in his next start?
I won't say hopefully because I want the Mets to score 5-6 runs every half inning, but I would like to continue to see him work the zone up and down with the fastball. I want to continue to use the curveball. I believe now that you could use baseball savant, one of my favorite things, when you start seeing the small percentages, I think it was a very tiny percentage of his slider. And he mentioned in my interview, it's one of the pitches he's really working on the most of the 4 is the slider. I would like to see the 4th pitch be thrown a little bit more. And then obviously continue to use the curveball a little bit more so that he's not always truly fastball, changeup. These are major league hitters. I don't want them to get any kind of timing down with our guy, our young stud. So it doesn't mean I want him to use all 4 pitches 20%, but I would like to see a tiny increase in the slider And then pitch command. It's going to be all about pitch command for him and McLean. McLean's got the ridiculous wiffle ball. So same thing for Tong. I want to see consistency up and down the zone. And I just want, if it's like a 1% slider, get it to like 5 to 8%. Like keep kind of getting in some of the other pitches so that these hitters aren't trying to time out that delivery and figure it out for the pitch wise.
And we've been seeing it with Nolan McLean. It's only been 3 starts, but he's been pretty much dominating. Last start versus Philadelphia, 8 innings pitched, 4 hits, no runs, no walks, 6 strikeouts. So far in these first 3 starts, 3-0, 0.89 ERA, and he's got 21 strikeouts in 21 and a thirds innings pitch. He's the first Mets pitcher to win his first 3 starts in franchise history. I talked about the poise. He's got ice in his veins. Very impressive to see him dominate in the middle of a pennant chase against a division rival in the Philadelphia Phillies. It's been crazy the way he's been handling lefties very well, limited the walks, none in his last 2 starts, has a better ERA than even Tom Seaver. Now, I'm not going to go too far, but through the first 3 starts, 0.89 ERA. We know Tom Seaver's a Hall of Famer. We know things that can change, so I don't want to do too much comparison, but they did bring it up, so I thought I'd bring it up as well. We knew Nolan McLean was good, but did you ever think he would get off to a start like this right off the bat?
No. I mean, I might as well be honest. I did not think it was going to be this dominating. I've been fully admitting this from the beginning. When he post-draft, I was told by one of the coaching staff, buy stock in Nolan McLean. But even on that, I kind of thought he was going to ditch the hitting very quickly, which he did. And then I thought he was going to be a pen arm. I thought he was going to be a back-end pen arm. I thought we'd be having the conversation that one of your listeners and viewers just said right now about Sprout. I thought McLean was going to be like an 8th, 9th inning closer. Never mind. So what's happening is you have a guy who's so raw. Absolutely in no way a comparison at all. But you have a version of a DeGrom here coming out of college, hitting and throwing. And all of a sudden, now that he's in the pros, in the major leagues, the arm has not been overused since college. And he's learning all these new extra pitches and pitch usages. This is all new to him. And for me, the surprise is how quickly he's able to do it, learning all this new stuff so quickly. He wasn't even only a one-way play. He was still a two-way player like last year. Everything is ridiculous in the time frame. I didn't expect it, but I did know he had that wiffle ball. And again, shout out to the coaching staff because they're the ones who told me you have no idea how good he's going to be.
When it comes to the same thing as we talked about with Jonah Tong, what are you looking for in his next couple of starts as we march forward to postseason and him possibly being on this postseason roster?
I mean, I don't want to word it as a concern, but I'm just trying to figure out because a lot of fans have mentioned it to me online. What are we doing about the pitch counts? Like we're all arguing right now about Clay Holmes hitting that wall. Now, here we are. I haven't checked the recent numbers in the last week, but I'm pretty sure McLean and Tong have already surpassed their 2024 innings. So not by a lot, but if you're talking into the whole month of September, October, we're going to be pushing 140, 150 plus innings now for both of them. And I think they were in the 110s, 112s, 114s of something last year. That would be the one thing as far as, because again, Mets fans hate this right now, but will they have to end up being 5-inning-ish pitchers for the rest of the year? Or do they ride these horses and try to get them to go 6+? I know we have enough stress overall as it is with the other guys. That's my thing. How many innings per start are McLean and Tong going to pitch for the rest of the year? Even if they're doing well. Again, does Mendoza leave them in? Even a couple months ago, Holmes was being taken out at 80 pitches, conservatively. And I think they just couldn't really do that anymore. Now it's been more of a struggle thing than a cap thing with him. Is that going to happen to these two guys? And how pissed is everybody going to be if it does?
Yeah, you like you mentioned, Clay Holmes already. We're not getting innings out of Kodai Senga and Sean Manaea. Tyler McGill could give you 4-5 innings. Like these guys are not going more than 5. And to get a McLean to go 8, and with the pitch count, we even went through this. What was it in 2015 with Matt Harvey coming back from the Tommy John surgery? Were they going to let him go past it? Because by September, he was pretty much past his limits, and they just rode the wave, and it took them to the World Series. I wonder if that kind of, impacts their decision-making, whether they care more about making it to the postseason or the health of the player. And as we're seeing, like, eventually, it just feels like all these guys are destined for a Tommy John surgery or some type of arm surgery. So how much do you hold them back?
I mean, that's going to be the huge decision at this point. And there could be some, not hope, but maybe there's expectations in the Mets organization that eventually Senga and Minaya will start pitching like we need them to do. It doesn't mean I want them to do that so we can get less of our McLean and Tong, but as we get down the stretch, if they're able to go 6 innings and stuff on their end, and these guys can go 5-ish, there's ways to work it out, because even with Clay Holmes, once playoffs begin, what do you do? Like, I don't know if anyone's expecting McLean to just throw zeros now for the rest of the season, but if McLean and Tong are pretty much doing those versions of DeGrom where they're 0 to 1, 0 to 2 earned runs every start for the rest of the year, how do you not start them in the playoff rotation unless the two supposed horses are doing their thing? And then we can have a little fun and a little piggyback game, because what if you had all of these guys in the pen? It would be ridiculous. If you have an actually successful Senga, Minaya, Peterson, and then you're able to roll with some of the top prospects in minor league baseball, plus Clay Holmes, all in the pen, piggyback in 2-3 innings, that sounds like a Dodgers situation to me, ultimately in a playoffs.
You have Marcos Figueroa in the chat talking about, the Mets are going to have 8 guys piggybacking over 4 starts, 2 each for 4 innings. And look, the Dodgers made that successful. Obviously, a lot of injuries plagued them last season, and they figured out a way to manipulate with this bullpen and win a World Series. So it's not like it can't be done. Yeah. It's just that the rest of this Mets team has to, like you mentioned, Senga, Peterson, these guys have to, Minaya, they have to step up to the plate and, provide, whereas if, McLean and Tong need the rest, or, Clay Holmes has to come in for 1 inning, they have that opportunity. You talked about the ESPN ranks, the ranking, and the Mets farm system is ranked number 1 now via ESPN. Preseason, they were ranked 9th. I want to talk to how excited you were to see that and how far this team has come, especially over the last 5 to 6 years with David Stearns now being in charge and Steve Cohen taking over the team in 2020. And I don't know if a lot of people read it, but they talked a lot about how close a lot of these players were to making the major leagues, and a lot of them already being in the major leagues, whereas Vientos and Alvarez and Beatty, now McLean and Tong, and what did you think, like, when you initially saw this ranking of the Mets being number 1? Was it just excitement for you, or were you like, oh, now they got a lot of emphasis on this team?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to slow my roll a bit, and I was excited, and I thought it was really awesome that the Mets are getting this recognition. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, I knew it. They have the best farm system. They always have. I don't want to do the homer thing. I was excited about it because my thoughts on it is, when you do national rankings for publications for all the teams in baseball, you want to factor in some of the sexy stuff, high bonus kids, high draft picks, a million tools. But the thing with the Mets, everyone's knock on the Mets for the last 2-3 years, even when the farm system was looking great, the concern was, what is the quality over quantity? That's been the thing with the Mets. You have all these names. There looks like really good depth, but they always want to know, where's the Harper? Where's the Ronald Acuna? Where's the young Juan Soto? And everyone's kind of demand, where's Paul Skeens? And all of a sudden, boom. Now I'm not saying they're Skeens, but now you have a McLean and Tong doing what they do. Now that's national recognition. Now when you factor in all the younger players that have taken steps up, even I interviewed Jacob Reimer. Reimer's one of those hitting lab poster child. Made him laugh when I labeled him that. So when you have a guy like that jumping, you have an AJ Ewing, you have even Ryan Clifford right now randomly has gotten quietly hot at the highest AAA level. Now when you see guys succeeding at the upper minors levels, now you're turning into the higher ceiling players meeting their expectations. So to me then from that, it does make sense to make them one of the highest ranked, if not possibly the top ranked farm system. When you have that many guys thriving on the highest level, getting that general public attention now as more than just high floor guys, one of those terms. Now we're talking about high ceiling guys thriving right now.
With McLean, Tong, and Queens, we got Sproat not too far away. Who are the next crop of starting pitchers we should be keeping an eye on? I know John Leary in the chat mentioning Jack Winiger. You also got Jonathan Santucci as well. Who are you keeping your eyes on?
Yeah, as far as trying to come off top of my head, starters and relievers, I even mentioned it this week on X with Tong being graduated all the way up. By the way, if you go on MILB.com and who has the most strikeouts in AA, Eastern League, Jack Winiger. I see Jack Winiger as a really solid kind of mid-ish rotation arm. I think he's a guy who eats innings. I like his K rate. I believe his K rate and command overall, he's had some weird blips. I think Jack Winiger is going to be one of those solid guys you don't really hear about, but then he's just in the rotation. And then Jonathan Santucci, first and foremost, a lefty who throws 95 plus. You got me there. So staff said he has one of the most electric fastballs in the Mets farm system. So when you have a lefty 95 plus with an elite above average fastball, you got me. So you have that. Then you even have Zach Thornton, who, by the way, another lefty. He throws low 90s. I think at his best, he can get it to 94, 95. He probably has the best pitch command of any pitcher in the Mets minor league farm system. So that has to count for something, by the way. Again, not comparing, but a guy like a lefty version of like a Max Kranick who comes to the major leagues and only throws strikes. I'll take that all day. Those are some of the arms. And then again, for the pen arms, you've got the guys like Dylan Ross, who has been rushed himself because he's missed like multiple years to injuries. Here he is jumping like 2-3 levels in the minor leagues in 1 year. He can throw 99 to 102 with a really electric splitter. And then you have the guy I just mentioned this morning on X, Ryan Lambert, who I'm also told that's one of the best fastballs in the system. We've got like Tong. You've got.
We talked about Lambert in spring. You mentioned Lambert in spring, and he has been pretty good.
Yeah. He hasn't allowed a run in August, I believe. So he's hot right now in AA. Dylan Ross is there. There could be some other arms as well as possible future starting pitchers, but I know even me, I'll start to push it if I start naming too many. But that's a lot of depth right now. And again, when you get to the Winigers, the Thorntons, the Santuccis, you may be talking about the early stages of what we went through with Peterson, McGill, now as far and Christian Scott when he came up. Like these type of arms, when you club them up all the way together, the system's crazy right now. And can we ever finally get to the point where every time a guy unfortunately goes down, we're going to start calling up a top 30 prospect rather than a waiver wire guy?
Yeah, that's the hoping where we get to, right? Like that's what the Dodgers do, bringing up their guys. So you're hoping that the Mets can start doing that and stop seeing the Jared Eichhoffs of the world that we've seen in the past and all of these, middling relievers that are on these contracts that are basically there to, just in case, just in case you need to get out there. I hope that answers the question on the middle reliever Armand, because I know he asked the question about the middle relievers. So appreciate you answering that. One more question on these prospects, because we haven't talked since the Mets had the draft, but what are your thoughts on the Mets top draft pick, Mitch Voigt?
I mean, obviously all extreme small sample sizes. I started talking to staff behind the scenes, getting any info I can. Hey, what's going on? Hey, he had a good week. Hey, he's struggling. And it was basically like, hey, Dove, got to slow down. Let's remember the logistics of these things. These guys had a long college season. Then they get a month break without playing a game. And then poof, they're in low A professional baseball facing live hitting. Not easy. But I still like some of the stuff I'm seeing. You see the highlight reels in one game. I think Mitch Voigt had basically one ridiculous defensive play per inning for the entire 9 innings. That was fun. Antonio Jimenez, very super quietly, is kind of putting together hits, getting on base every single game in August. So it's I like the athleticism, though, of these guys because they're all playing multiple positions. And then again, with the arms, here we go. There's a million of them. There's even undrafted arms and bats right now that are doing well. All you can really say is shout out to the amateur scouting department and shout out to the resources, pitching lab, hitting lab, because I've been hearing certain things all the time now this year. Guys you've never heard of, even guys like a Randy Guzman, who was like a 230 hitter in the Dominican Summer League. He's in A-ball, hitting almost 1,000 OPS. How do you do that a year later? Because of the work being put in and the constant use of resources, analytics, coaching, guidance, putting it into action. The new stuff that Stearns is implementing last year, it looks like there was a kind of a rookie stress out of everyone trying to figure it out. And now in the second year of all this stuff, it's getting pretty amazing.
We're going to get to the Major League Club and the Mets homegrown guys from there. Real quick, shout out 266 people in this room right now. I want to get to this real quick question from Medcast asking, what happens when Winker is back? I think the guy that goes down is probably Ronnie Mauricio, with him not playing as much, with what Mark Vientos has been able to do in turning around, who we're going to get into next. Obviously, Brett Beatty has had his on and off season, but he's been, more consistent as of late. What are you thinking about when it's time to bring back Winker and it's time to bring back Siri? I think it's going to be Ronnie Mauricio, but you still got another spot there. Who are you taking out of here?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that would be my guess. If both players magically were able to get brought up together in the expanded roster, I think you would call both of them up. And then I think Ronnie Mauricio would be the one to go. Everyone tried. There was a bit of lightning in the bottle of sorts when Mauricio was playing a little bit, and then it just completely died out. Great defense, hit a couple of monster home runs. But then when you give a Ronnie Mauricio 2-3 days off, he's not the kind of hitter with the kind of hit tool that'll show up 3 days later and start hitting. It wasn't working for Vientos, honestly, either, when he wasn't playing every day. So I would think that's going to be the guy. But we may have to keep an eye on Winker for a little bit. Again, 100% opinion, speculation, eyeball views, but it doesn't really look like Winker right now is ready to get called up. Again, this is an opinion. No information directly from the Mets organization, but based on what I was hearing, even from yesterday, 2 days ago, I don't know if a guy like Winker is going to magically show up anytime soon as far as September 1, September 2. So we may have time to think about that. But yeah, either way, that would also still open the door for maybe bringing up a Siri quicker, actually, than Winker would be my guess. Based on nothing but speculation, I would say Siri comes up first. But maybe Acuna beats all of them anyway, depending on the immediate roster spot.
I agree with you. I think that this back injury is more than what we've seen and what we've heard, and they take a while to come back from. And he has not been himself the entire season, and the setbacks even after he came back, he probably wasn't even 100% when he came back. The Mets needed a spark. They put him in, and look, it took him one game and it took him right back out. So I wouldn't be shocked if he just doesn't return this season.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I still wish him the best. He's medically cleared. He's playing as a DH so far in the rehab games, and he could just be a full-time DH no matter what. If he did come back, you would like to think there's a 0.0 chance that he takes the field. So it would only be as a lefty bat, as a pinch hitter. But we'll have to wait and see. And I know the series situation is well, why? He was 1 for 20 in April. We don't care. There's an electricity with him. He could be another version of Acuna, basically, but for the outfield positions. So there could be a role for him. But we would like to see a little bit of power, obviously, which probably won't show in South Florida. The weather here is terrible. The ballparks are huge. So don't expect some monster rehab home runs from either guy. But I think that would be the plan, honestly. Those are the guys. Acuna probably first. But again, I just don't see the Dylan Rosses, the Brandon Sproats, the Carson Benj, who recently homered in the last week in AAA. I just don't know how much more you're going to go into that well and bring up another electric rookie to kind of ignite the whole Mets fandom. I think these are the veterans that are next now for September.
Yeah, and even with Siri, you mentioned the veteran presence and what he brings to the team. I mean, you can't trot out Tyrone Taylor every single day. He is a, platoon type player. And we're seeing him thrive with now he's starting to hit more and he's gotten more time off, and splitting time with Cedric Mullins has worked for him. But you look at Cedric Mullins has not played well since coming over to New York, and his defense is not great. Jose Siri's brings defense to the team. So you just want to have all avenues open for this team when it comes to the veteran presence. And thankfully here, the Mets have gotten a big boost this month and a half, and we've seen the offense doing an uptick because look, Mark Vientos, man, he's had a resurgence of himself. Manny Gomez of NJ.com put this stat out here. Vientos is 40 for 129, which is a .310 batting average in his last 35 games. He has 9 home runs and 32 RBIs during that span. This season, 246, 15 homers, 53 RBIs, and a 732 OPS. What do you think has changed in Mark's approach at the plate from earlier on in the season?
Well, I mean, we could try to go with some of the things that are usually said, and I usually joke about it online. But when he's going to right center, then things are going right for Mark Vientos. So when you see him do that, so that he's not trying to pull the ball on certain fastballs and everything else, that's some of the keys to success. And possibly, not to be sarcastic, but maybe some of the reasons why Mark Vientos is so hot right now is because he's playing pretty much every day. Again, no more of the play, sit. You're worried about his defense. I understand. And then the thing was, Beatty's looking good. Marte's healthy and hot. What do you do with Vientos? But right now, credit Carlos Mendoza. Everyone wants to fight with the staff and the Mets organization. Credit the Mets. One way or another now, they're getting these guys playing pretty much every day, and they're all hot right now at the same time. And even like you said, for a guy like Taylor, probably like a Torrens situation, when you play not really every day, but it's like a version of at least getting the rest, you're seeing them get hot right now. So will I think Mark Vientos is going to repeat 2024 playoffs? I don't know, but this is the guy. And he literally has said, I want this attention, not for the ego, but he believes in himself. He's ready for the playoffs. I do think this is sustainable because he technically has a track record from last year.
Yeah. And even in the minors, he had a track record of being a power bat and being that guy. Just didn't know what position he would be playing. I had a feeling he would kind of had this kind of like little bit of a sophomore slump, but I was never willing, to give up on him, considering not only the regular season last year, but what he provided in the postseason as well. I just don't think it's a coincidence that, with his resurgence now, the Mets offense is now doing a lot better, especially with runners in scoring position.
Well, that was a miracle stats all of a sudden. All of a sudden, they're hitting. Although, obviously, here we go again. At the worst times is when they still don't hit with runners in scoring position, going through all the bad pitching right now. But again, it still has to do with the approach. I'm even hearing it in the minor leagues now at this point. Some of the players that are recently on a hot streak in the minors, it was one of those things I remember that was being reported on at the Major League Mets, with like Soto trying to teach Mauricio to let the ball come in a tick more. And I think some of it now is starting to work. Again, with a guy like Vientos, letting the ball come in just a tad more, utilize enough of your bat speed that you do have and capitalize on it. Those are some of the things that are coming into play. It's all working right now. And I do honestly feel it can be sustainable because, again, the strikeouts and the pop-ups with runners in scoring position have been destroying my life. And I know it means a lot for the fans as well. Hopefully that form of approach, going opposite field, not everyone's going to choke up like a Soto with 2 strikes, but now he's doing what he does regardless of the count and people on base. So now you have the expectations just meeting them normally for those guys. For the younger guys, again, going opposite field, not trying to pull. If they can sustain this, this offense might do what it's doing right now for the rest of the year.
Yeah, they are currently hitting 328 with a 967 OPS with runners in scoring position in the second half, and the league average is 259 with a 766 OPS. So they're having one of the best second halves offensively. Now the pitching is on the other end of not helping this team out. So it's crazy to see. But when it comes to Vientos, as we wrap up Vientos here, the fact that last season he was able to hit the way he did during the regular season, overcome certain slumps and not let them prolong, and then did what he did in the postseason. I mean, and you mentioned the track record. I know Marcus Figueroa in the chat here, huge Mark Vientos fan, and go back and forth about him. And look, this is a guy that the Mets are going to have to rely on September and October, and if he continues to deliver, this is a guy that could be a very important part of his team, not only this year, but moving forward.
Well, that's going to be an interesting decision for winter, but obviously 2025, he's needed badly, and he's thriving right now and helping the team in any way he can. Again, he defensively at third, he's got the super strong arm. He can have certain instincts. He's kind of like the Wilmer thing. If the ball's hit at him, he's going to catch it with that arm. So he's going to provide enough value for the rest of the season. Can't always look ahead. I don't know if he's going to be the future DH forever, future first baseman. Those things are to be decided. But he does look, he's going to be needed one way or another. We can say this all day long, but Vientos, Beatty, and I think also especially Alvarez, they're going to be needed in September to kind of push this team along. I would like to think they're going to make the playoffs one way or another, but to make any noise whatsoever, besides the obvious pitching, these young guys are going to have to be what they're doing right now.
Absolutely. And Francisco Alvarez, let's talk about him real quick. A little bit of an injury update on him. He sprained his right thumb ligament sliding into base. I think is during that Little League game. So went out on IL, doing the rehab. Then he gets hit left pinky, fractures that. But now back DHing on Saturday for Syracuse. Ernest, man, this kid is tough as nails. You're talking about a position where his hands are so vital to whether it's catching the ball, throwing it to second. I mean, how crazy has this whole season been for Francisco Alvarez? And if he can come out through this and continue for the rest of the season, I mean, you cannot deny the kid's fortitude and what he does to prepare on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's been his thing since he was a teenager. I was hearing about his leadership from when he was like 18 years old. I had one of the top international scout in the Mets organization when he was about 18. He said, listen, Francisco Alvarez is such a leader that he was actually getting things. They were changing rules in the Dominican. Certain players were starting to feel more confident to express themselves, show themselves. There were things even personally, professionally, things that he was doing, that he was leading and role modeling fellow kids at 18. And then here we are. You've talked about, and many people have talked about his work ethic ever since. He wants to be out there so badly that he'll literally do anything to get back on this team and help the team win. It's the thing that he's known for years. This is nothing new. As far as all these hand injuries, I have no idea how he's going to play. I believe he had one of those games. He almost took a sombrero last night in Syracuse. But, one game is what it is. Let's see how he is for a few more games. But this is an expectation that he puts on himself. He wants to be there. He brings energy, by the way. We're talking about McLean and Tong bringing energy. Alvarez permanently brings personality and energy to the team. So I want him physically on the active roster because it's going to bring that electricity just as much as the rookies.
And the Mets are going to need that. We're heading into the final month of the regular season here. And this team has had too many inconsistencies. You're talking about starting pitcher length, what we just talked about earlier. The bullpen, especially the new guys in Ryan Helsley and Rogers and Gregory Soto, most recently, they have not pitched well. You're getting defensive errors, especially from Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso. They got to clean the defensive errors up, especially from stars like these guys. They're struggling against weaker teams. They sweep the Phillies. They struggle against the Marlins and Nationals. Like, come on, something's got to give this month, Ernest.
Yeah, I'm never going to have an explanation for that. And also, to be honest, I'm going to respectfully put all the pressure on Kodai Senga and Minaya, because
Absolutely.
I have to respectfully do it. They're the veterans. Not really about the contracts themselves, but these guys need to step up. I'm not going to sit here and talk about all the young guys. Keep doing what you're doing. Maybe it's an exaggeration, but without these two doing what they're supposed to be doing on the back of their baseball cards, I think they're going to go ahead and back themselves into the playoffs just barely. And I don't know what kind of shot they'll have unless those two do everything they're expected to. Because, again, I would like to think the offense may not always hit 300 plus with runners in scoring position through the playoffs, but I think they're going to score enough so that if these guys do what they need to do, I think the Mets can make some serious noise in the playoffs. But I'm putting the pressure on them respectfully.
Well, you had David Peterson carry the rotation for most of the season, and now you're starting to see the last, 4 or 5 starts. He struggled a bit, but Senga's got to step up. Manaya's got to step up. When you get 5, possibly 6 innings, not only does it help the rotation out, but it helps the bullpen out and not having to waste, arms unnecessarily. That they need this trickle down effect to start working. And, backing into the postseason is all well and good if they can just get in, but you don't want them having what happened in 2022. They definitely backed into the postseason, unfortunately, and got quickly taken out in the wild card round. You want to see this team fight with a little adversity here, kind of like what they did last year. A strong September from the entire team. It's been since, late May, early June. This team has not played well. They just haven't.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting and awful to hear some of the stats lately. Like, they're pretty much averaging a touchdown a game for weeks, and yet they have a 500 record, if that, during the weeks. You can't average 6, 7 runs a game and not have 5, 6, 7 more wins than losses. But here we are, randomly now, no defense. The bullpen, we're doing the balancing act. April, May, we have the greatest pitching staff in the history of baseball. And you knew it was going to regress a little, but we didn't know it was going to go from sub 2 ERA to 6 as a team. This is what happens. Plus random bad defense. That's when it becomes the joke. The Mets are being the Mets again. I don't know when this is going to stop. What's the right balance? Can they get 4 to 5 runs a game? Again, I'm not even asking Senga and Minaya to be 8-inning pitchers. I honestly, realistically don't see it. But if they go 5-ish, 5 2/3, 6 innings with 0 to 2 earned runs, it can affect the entire rest of the season. And I think they won't be a 500 team offensively if they can do that.
The funny thing, when Clay Holmes came over, I was like, oh, this is going to be a better spot for him. The Mets have a way better defense than the Yankees do. And it kind of feels like they've been making the same type of errors. I mean, just Thursday alone was just a mess. The offense fought hard to come back and tie the game. And then all these calamity of errors. And it just happens in bunches for this team, all in one inning, all in one spot. And I hope that they get that fixed, because in the postseason, there's no given when it comes to these errors. They will pay, and they will pay hard in these postseason games. Duran Rivera saying 100%ers. Those two are veterans and should be leading by example. And then Patty and NYC saying Ernest is one of my favorite guests because we are on the same page about just about everything. Ernest, I can't thank you enough for being a part of the show today. It's always great to have you on, talk prospects. Let everyone know what you got coming up and where to follow you. We'll make sure we put all the information as well in the description of today's show.
Yeah, just continue to check me out on the New York Mets Dove Report on YouTube. I also try to be a contributor, supporter of sites like maxmets.blogspot.com. Even always forever shout out to the guys at sportswireradio.org. Some of the things I got coming up, I keep trying to have more and more interviews, whether it's player or coach. I keep trying to have more logistics. Again, I had Jonah Tong on the show. I had Jacob Reimer on the show. I'm trying to work out some stuff right now logistically with a couple of affiliates. So hopefully be on the lookout for more player interviews, even into the winter. There's no off season for people like us, right? So continue to check out some of the information, content on my channel. I'll try to have players on throughout the off season So I hope you guys continue to enjoy it and support all of us. Like, support all of this Mets content the best that you can, guys, because I know we're all trying our best. We give the best information we can, and I'm just thankful to everybody who listens and supports both of us.
Yeah, appreciate you, Ernest. You can follow Ernest at Ernest Dove on X, and make sure to follow the New York Mets Dove Report on YouTube. Check out all those interviews, especially the one that just came out recently with Jonah Tong. You can catch everything on the description of this show. Shout out 314 people joining us today. A lot of fun chatting with you and having you be a part of it. You don't know how much I appreciate this. And as Ernest said, please support all of these Mets content creators out there. Metcast was in here earlier. There's a whole bunch out there. Hector in NYC got to interview Carlos Mendoza, so I'm sure that'll be up soon. And everyone that's out there, check them out. And support all of these guys. You can follow me on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway To Shea. You can follow me personally at Ant Rivera 86. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you prefer to listen to the show. But just like you did today, if you want to be a part of the conversation, you are doing it on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to Subway To Shea there, and you can enjoy the show. That wraps it up for Subway To Shea. For Anthony Rivera, for Ernest Dove, thank you all for being a part of this. And always remember, let's go Mets.